So today is the fifth part of our Rainbow series, and I love the Rainbow series because it reminds me how to see things in steps, okay? That first we recognize the package that our life comes in and we accept it. When we can accept that, then we accept how God works through things. Then we accept the package that our relationships are in. And so when we're doing that, we're accepting how God works through all people. And then we accept the package we come in. And when we can do that, we're trusting how Spirit works through us. And that God actually speaks to us and guides us through our gut feelings. That feeling of yes, do it, or no, don't do it. That's intuition. Okay, and sometimes people don't want to trust that, but that is actually part of the higher realms that we're connected to all the time. We're supposed to have that. So that helps us to trust that we're an unlimited being in a body. We get forgetful sometimes. We think we're this physical package only, but it's the unlimited us working, using this as a channel, right? When you drive your car, you never ever think you're your car, ever. You don't ever make that mistake. Yet we make it all the time with this physical body, okay? So remembering how God works through us, that helps us to remember we're the unlimited being using this body to have this human experience. Now, what's nice then is getting familiar with the physical aspect of our life, we connect to our heart. Now, when we connect to the heart, we see the world through eyes of love. And it is using this heart energy then that allows us to have access to the higher spiritual truths that are always available to us. But we have to be able to come from a loving place to have access to those. We walk in two worlds all the time. We're always walking in the physical world, and we see it, we sense it, we believe it. But at the same time, we are moving in the spiritual realms. But because we don't see it with our physical eye, we lose awareness. When we're coming from our heart, we are more easily able to remember that we're part of both a physical world and a spiritual world. Now, the spiritual reality, once we start tapping into the higher truths, that allows us to start putting spiritual truth into action in the physical world. Okay, so we have a spiritual reality, we have a physical reality. Our heart allows us to bring the spiritual reality into physical form, okay, into our physical reality. That is why the heart is so amazingly important. Now, that brings us to the fifth part of our journey then today. The fifth part of our journey is about how we express spiritual truth in this world. Now, we're wearing the color blue because it honors spiritual truth. And in the Eastern tradition, that comes through the throat chakra. And the throat chakra is about making choices and communicating. And it is also represented by the color blue. This helps us to make choices that empower ourselves. Okay, communication is the first step to how we're expressing spiritual truth in this world. When we're connected to our heart. Okay, it's our heart that allows us to connect in to higher spiritual truths. So then we communicate for the highest good. Okay, we think about what we say before we actually speak it. Now, the Buddhists know this as right teaching or right speech. Right speech is when we think about what we say first. Now, I don't know who here besides me has ever said something without thinking about it and then just thought, oh, why did I say that, right? Okay, that's not being connected to the heart, all right? If we say something that's just mean or thoughtless and it comes out without our thinking about it, okay, we just weren't connected to the heart, that's all. And so we get back to the place where we accept our life, we accept our relationships, we accept our package that we're in, we move into the heart, we feel the love, we think about what it is that we say. Now, this is really important to us because everything we say affects everybody around us. Okay, did what we just say empower somebody or did it tear them down? Okay, what we say affects what we feel. Okay, it affects us because we always have an inner dialogue, right? All the time an inner dialogue is going on. Are we encouraging ourselves? Okay, are we tearing ourselves down? Now, the spiritual truth for this part of our journey is to surrender personal will to divine will. Now, personal will is when we come from a space of fear. We make choices based on fear. A lot of times, and I used to believe this too, I thought that if I had to surrender to divine will, it meant that I didn't get to do any fun stuff anymore. Right? Oh man, if I have to walk the path God wants me to walk, that's not going to be any fun at all, right? That's what I really used to believe, that it meant giving up everything, being uncomfortable, being cold and hungry, right? Not getting to do anything I loved, right? Because that would be God's will for me. I had to live like a monk, or like in India, like they do in India or something, right? And like, that's just not for me. I need a comfortable bed to sleep in. But see, when we make choices based on fear, because we're not moving through the heart energy to get to the higher wisdom that's available to us, our choices are based on fear. Choices that are made from a space of fear never empower us. They always will hold us back. Choices based on fear will never empower another person. They will never empower somebody else. Okay, we're here to empower ourselves and to empower other people. Now, divine will, following divine will, gives us access to a level of power that enables us to empower ourselves and empower others through strength of spirit, because we're trusting that God works through us. Okay, there's a verse in the Course in Miracles that says something about, I'm not going to worry about what to do or what to say, because he who put me here or sent me here will guide me and tell me what to do and what to say, right? It's in the beginning of the book. I have it highlighted. If anybody does want to know the exact quote, I can give it to you later. But we didn't come here on our own. We didn't just fall to this planet on our own by ourselves. Something sent us here. And so that force is always working through us. We always have access to it. All we have to do is be willing to allow it to work through us. To allow it to work through us, we have to surrender personal will to divine will. Even when that makes us uncomfortable. Okay? And it will make us uncomfortable sometimes. Sometimes we have to speak out in truth and love when it might be an uncomfortable situation. We've all probably been in the situation where we've had to tell somebody we didn't like what they were doing. Okay? Now, when we're coming from a place of fear, this may come out as a reaction. Okay, and we may say it in a way that doesn't sound really great. It may sound a little mean, or we may be defensive. Okay, but when we are coming first through the heart to communicate the higher spiritual wisdom, we can speak the truth with love and compassion. Okay, so we're able to speak with truth and compassion, even if we have to tell somebody we don't agree with them. Even if we have to tell somebody that maybe they're hurting us. Or maybe we have to tell somebody that we think they're hurting themselves. Okay? But we are able to do that with love and compassion. Sometimes we do get faced with somebody who's really angry, and it may put us on the defensive. And if we ever get put on the defensive, you know what? We're having a human experience right now, right? If we do, we don't need to be hard on ourselves about it. All that means is that we've been sent to level 2, right, of our chakras, or our spiritual journey, and we're just at the place where we recognize God in all of our relationships again. That's all. Okay? Sometimes we start over on this path, right? I wake up every day and I'm somewhere different, right? I'm just working through where I am on that moment. Okay, so if we find ourselves getting defensive or angry at someone else, we just go back to that space. I see God in all my relationships, okay? God is working through this person. Maybe I'm not seeing it, but if I just tell myself, yes, I remember God is working through this person, it will appear. God will work through them, because God works through everybody. There's no place that God isn't. God is in every person and in everything, right? So even in that person who is annoying us. I had an experience 14 years ago. I can remember this so well because my daughter was about 4 months old. And I felt the need to be getting back to work. That prior to the birth of my daughter, I did just massage therapy. But I trained to become a homeopathic practitioner. And so after my daughter was born, I felt this urgency to put that to work, because I had a little regret about actually doing the training. Okay, it costs a lot of money, and I decided it really wasn't that great fit that I hoped it would be. And so now I felt like I had to put it to use to prove to myself I didn't make a wrong decision. So I was just going to do it anyway, and dang it, I was going to make it work, okay? I was going to force it to work. So I was already coming from a space of fear, okay? Insecurity, doubt, worry. I had this horrendous internal pressure to put this to work, to start making money at it. And so I found there's this woman in town, and she had known me for years, okay? And she actually invited me to come work out of her office, all right? So I went down there one day, and I had the kids with me because they were both really little. Adam was just a little over 2 at the time, so. And she didn't care if I had the kids in the office, right? Which was another nice reason to go into this office space with her. And I got the key. We had a conversation for maybe, 20 minutes. And then I got in my car and drove home. Now, I lived less than a mile away from, the office was just right over on Vine, and we just lived right up here on Grant Street, right? That was like a half a mile maybe. But by the time I get home, there's an email on my computer. And it's from her, and she says, "You're too negative. I don't want this negativity in my office. Bring me back my key." Okay, now first of all, this was 14 years ago. All that was available was AOL dial-up. Okay, I had 2 babies I was loading in the car. She could have come out, she got on that computer, the minute I walked out the door to have been able to compose that email that I read when I got home, right? She could have just stuck her head out the door, right? I'm loading my kids in the car. It took me forever to get out of there, right? Okay, well, that's just funny. And I see that it's funny now, okay? But you know what, when I read that email, I was crushed. I was absolutely crushed. First of all, this gal, she had known me for years. And she was a person who used to say, "You're just so positive, Deanna," right? And so I was really, really hurt by that. Now, yes, I was having a bad day. I was probably having a bad week or 2, right? I may have still even had, my midwife told me I had postpartum obsessive compulsive. And there may have been a little bit of that acting up in me too, right? But what would have been beautiful is to have received a gift of divine love and grace. That's really what I needed in that moment, okay? I did eventually get it from somebody else, all right? Somebody who told me that woman was crazy and, right, made me feel all better about myself, right? Like a good friend will do. Now, when people are coming from a space of fear, making choices out of fear, they're never at their best or brightest, ever. None of us are. When we're coming from a space of fear, we're not going to make very good decisions, okay? And we're not going to be shining our bright light for the world to see, right? And so she had an opportunity to empower somebody, and she didn't take it for whatever reason, and that's okay. That's okay now, right? Back then, it's 14 years later. I feel okay about it now, and it gave me, of course, a good story to tell at church, right? But I did learn something very powerful from that. I want to be the person who can give someone divine love and grace in that opportunity when they really need it. Okay, someday, all of us are going to be faced with somebody who is coming from a space of fear, who is being negative. Okay, what do they need? They need love, right? They need love. And what can we say through our heart that imparts some sort of wisdom and encouragement to them? We don't have to answer all their questions and solve all their problems, but we can tell them we love them, or if we don't want to say that, we can remind them of what works through them. Okay, we can remind them that eventually they find a way to solve their problems, that eventually they come through things, that it's happened before. Now at this level of empowerment, when we are working through our heart, so we are tapped into the higher spiritual truths, okay, we have the courage to speak up. We'll have that courage. We may still feel fear, but we'll know that speaking up is the right thing. Okay, and we can speak up with love and compassion. This will allow us to pass on divine grace to somebody who really needs it. We want to be the kind of person who speaks with love and compassion and truth, because that means we're working through our heart. It's a good reminder. Okay, and then we know where we stand, right? Just like if you eat a food that's really, really bad for you and it gives you a stomach ache, you have a physical response telling you that that wasn't so good, right? I remember my kids used to have this book on fish, and it had a shark that ate like a toolbox and a boot. And I just remember the kids and I laughing because that would make a human feel pretty miserable, right? Well, you know, when we're not working through our heart energy, we're going to feel discomfort. We may not feel the discomfort of eating a boot, but we're going to feel some discomfort because it's not what we're meant to be. It's not what we were created for. It's using the physical body for something else that it wasn't created for. We're created to be a channel for divine love and grace. So we're always going to feel our best when we are the channel for divine love and grace. So we want to have the courage to be loving to other people, to remember to come from our heart space. But see, we want to be able to do that for ourselves also. We want to be able to encourage ourselves also. We want to be able to forgive ourselves, to support ourselves. So when we can say to ourselves, well, I was really just coming from a space of fear, and that's why I messed that up, but I remember what works through me. I'll get there. I'll get back there. I do. Or maybe I was being judgmental, right? I was judgmental. I was real judgmental in that moment. Boy, I may have just said something. And then at that point, because of what works through us, because we're connected to our heart energy, we know that we can rectify it, that we don't have to stay in a place of regret and remorse. Regret and remorse keeps us stuck in the past. When we're stuck in the past, we're not present with this energy that works through us, which means we're not connecting into it. We're not allowing it to work through us. We're somewhere else. So we want to be able to let go of that and be forgiving to ourselves. And when we're forgiving to ourselves, we withdraw, right, from any negative thoughts we have about the feelings, but we also empower ourselves again. And we may have an idea then of what we can do. Maybe we want to rectify the situation. Maybe we want to apologize to someone. Maybe we want to help somebody do something. Maybe we want to send someone a blessing. I have this is my regular routine in the morning. I will just, everybody that pops into my head, I'll send them a blessing. And it makes me feel really good to do it. And especially if I'm feeling grumpy, but I start blessing other people, well, there's a lot of love and energy flowing through you when you bless other people. And so it's kind of hard to stay grumpy. And I've tried. I like to stay in my grumpy mood sometimes. And I'm like, wait a second, I was really grumpy. I got to get back. But I can't. When I'm blessing people, I can't stay grumpy. So we set things right. Recently, we revisited on Netflix a show called My Name is Earl. Now, we used to watch this show when it was first run, but we recently watched the pilot episode. It is the most hilarious show, but you know what? It is so metaphysical. The character, Earl, he's narrating the show. He says he's not a good person, that he'll steal anything that's not nailed down, right? That's how he's lived his life. He was a bully when he was in school. Okay, so one day he goes to the liquor store after stealing some stuff out of somebody's car, and he buys a scratcher lottery ticket, right? He wins $100,000. He's like yelling and screaming. He's so happy. He runs out into the street. He gets hit by a car. All right, he loses the lottery ticket. Okay, so he's in the hospital, and he's watching one of the late night shows, Carson Daly. I don't even know if that's still on anymore. But somebody asked Carson on the show. He's like Johnny Carson, right? But this is Carson Daly. But somebody says, Carson, you just have it all together and all these good things happening in your life. What do you do? What's your secret? And he says, well, you know, I believe in karma. I believe that what goes around comes around. So I just try to be a good person. Earl says, oh, there's my problem. I've been a bad person, so when something good happened to me, karma tried to kill me. Okay, and so he makes the decision that he is going to fix this, and he writes a list up of almost 300 things that he has done that were bad. Okay, when he commits to it, he and his brother are living in this hotel, right, a rundown hotel. He's outside picking up litter because he has been a litter bug his whole life. He says he has to pick up litter until he's picked up the same amount of litter that he littered, right? You know what happens? He finds that lottery ticket. So now he has the funding, but he believes in it. He is afraid. to go against karma now because he believes karma will kill him. Okay, he believes it. Anyway, the whole series is basically about him fixing this, but we in a way go through this ourselves. Every single choice that we make is either empowering us or it's disempowering us, right? To surrender our will to divine will means that we're making choices for our highest good, for our highest and our brightest good, right? That's how we become the brightest version of ourselves, is by surrendering to divine will. Our intuition is what helps us to understand that we're doing that. Okay, when we're following personal will, we are not going to feel right. There's going to be discomfort. When we're following divine will, we're going to feel better. Our intuition is what allows us to be able to understand the energetic data that is coming at us all the time. Okay? We have energetic data. I love that term. Okay? There's something always telling us yes or no. Okay? Yes or no. So we think about things that come at us every day. Should we maybe return a phone call? Okay? Did somebody just make us not feel right? Or did they make us feel really good? Right? We're receiving energetic data all the time. And so that's our intuition telling us, are we making a choice based on love, or are we making a choice based on fear? That's all it is. Now, when we choose from fear, we're just staying in our comfort zone. And we're not expanding, we're not growing. Remember, we're made from light. Light is made to expand and keep going forward, right? Well, I've talked about the sun before. It doesn't shine its light and then retract it back. It just keeps shining all the time. Okay, the light always moves forward, and that's what we're supposed to be. We're supposed to be moving forward. We stay, even in bad situations, out of fear. That's why people will stay in abusive relationships, because the change seems more fearful to them than just staying where they're familiar with everything already. Okay, but there's going to be something telling them that they need to get out. With fear, we're always going to feel. We'll still feel intuition. Okay, but when we're afraid, when we're coming from a place of fear, we will convince ourselves that it's wrong. Okay, we'll say, no, I'm really not meant to do that because of all this stuff, and we'll come up with really good excuses why we can't do it. We'll even be able to justify why following our intuition would be the wrong thing to do. I used to love that term, justify. Because I told one of my friends I was the queen of justification. I can make any excuse. That sounds like the best idea ever. Yeah, I justified for years and years why I couldn't do certain things, right? In fact, one of my greatest fears of being a minister was that when I would fill in for places, I always had like 2 or 3 months notice, right? I would take the whole 2 or 3 months to work on my sermon, right? And I'd be like, wow, how do these people do it week after week? I can't be a full-time sermon. I'd run out of stuff after, a few months, and I couldn't get a sermon together in a week. And that was one of my great excuses, and I totally believed it, and I totally bought into it, right? I had all kinds of great excuses. I didn't have the right place to work. I didn't have enough training, or I need to lose a little more weight, right? I even remember one time I cut my hair too short. I was like, oh, I just can't work right now because I don't like my hair. That's my Leo rising. Okay, Leos love their hair. They love their hair. That was really one of my excuses. Anyways, you can see I got past some of those excuses, right? But I know a couple of years ago, I was teaching a class on energy work. And it's one of my favorite things to teach. I've been doing energy work a long time. And I had this girl come up to me and just say, wow, that's amazing. I would love to take this class. And then she told me all these things that she was going to do with it. Right? She was going to work in hospice, and she was going to teach it to kids, and she was going to try to get it in here at the Redlands Hospital, and blah, blah, blah. And then she says, but I can't afford it. And I'm like, well, I've been there. I said, well, you know what, if it really means a lot to you, it was only $100. It was just a one-day workshop, right? But I said, you could split it up, a monthly payment of $24, that would be fine. Oh, so she came up with more excuses. And they were really good. They were really good. Some of them I had used also. Okay? So I let it be. We have to get to a point where we're just willing to move past that fear, right? But you know what? Choosing from love does not mean that these choices aren't going to be scary, right? Following our intuition, because intuition is what gets us on a different course. If you're driving in your car and you're using your GPS and you're going the right direction, the GPS isn't going to yell at you about it, right? It's when you make a wrong turn. You'll start hearing rerouting, make a turn, do a U-turn, do this. It starts telling you how to get back on course, right? Otherwise, GPS can be fairly quiet if you have a long distance in a straight line, right? Okay, intuition will be fairly quiet when we're on course, when we're moving forward, okay, moving forward. When we get off course or we're not moving forward, intuition's going to tell us something that might just be a little scary. When is moving from one town to another town not a little scary? Okay, when is going to a new school not a little scary? Okay, when is changing jobs not a little scary? Or when is quitting your job to start a new home business or something? When's that not scary? Okay, when is getting a divorce not scary? When is starting a new relationship not scary? Okay, all of those things are going to be scary, but you know what? It's those scary things that have the biggest payoff. Okay, they have a big payoff when we get through them. Now, I homeschooled both my kids through junior high. Okay, Adam went to high school for the first time this last year. He told me it was one of the scariest decisions he ever made. Okay, it was a scary decision to go from homeschooling to go to a high school, right? This last year at his student-led conference at the end of the year, the student gets up in front of a mentor and the parent and a peer, and they talk about their year. They talk about what they've learned over the last trimester, or they just talk about all kinds of stuff. And then Adam says, "This has been the best year of my life." Okay? He loved the experience. It was also the scariest change that he'd ever made. And I asked him about it. I'm like, "So was it the scariest decision?" And he's like, "Well, no." But then he started thinking about it, and he couldn't think of a scarier choice he'd ever made, right? Okay, so that was a huge thing. It was scary, but it was also amazing. It was amazing once he got moving through it, right? Amazing. Remember that, baby. So intuition is going to be scary because it's about moving us forward. But when we are coming from a space of love, okay, when we are connected to the higher spiritual truths that are always available to us, we're always going to be moving in the direction of our highest good. Okay, and that's what's important. To move in the direction of our highest good is what's going to bring us the most happiness. Now, it takes courage to trust that there is something working through us that moves us forward. It does take courage to believe that this force wants to inspire us to grow. Okay, to trust that we already have everything we need, right? We're enough already just as we are. Okay, we don't have to buy something or get more training to have that intuitive nudge. We have it all the time. We feel it all the time. We are all perceptive enough. It is just a matter of what our level of trust is. We're all perceptive. Are we trusting it though? Sometimes I think we want that big burning bush type sign, right? That would be clear. Okay, but this feeling, right? The feeling that we get, we're not trusting ourselves so often. Okay, but that's when we're not surrendering our will to divine will. Okay, following divine will, surrendering to that, will make it easier to trust ourselves as we practice. And we'll get a lot of practice. We know what we're supposed to be doing. We always know. If we're not doing it, we're just afraid. We just haven't been able to move past that yet. But we can, because we have everything we need inside of us to move past it. We do. And you know what? If we don't, it'll just keep making us uncomfortable. And eventually, we'll have to engage the heart and we'll have to make a choice, right? But it'll just keep knocking. right? Eventually we're going to want to do something because it's going to be making us crazy. In the book of Philippians, it says, "For it is God who inspires you with a will to do the good things which you desire to do." Then it says, "Do all things without doubting and disputing." I love that. We're receiving energetic information telling us how to move forward to doing what we greatly desire to do. What we greatly desire to do is higher will, our highest good. Okay? When we surrender our will to divine will, we connect into something that we discover was what we wanted more than anything we could ever imagine. We just have to let ourselves connect in. Often we'll doubt it, okay? And that doubt the doubts that we have can make a lot of sense sometimes, because sometimes the doubt will tell us, well, that's irresponsible. Okay, it's irresponsible to quit your job and start a business. And that'll stop us from moving forward because it makes sense. When I started massage school, there was a guy there who was just winding up his 1,000-hour training, but he was getting into sports medicine and going to work at a sports therapy clinic, and he was all like totally buff and worked out like 5 hours a day, right? That had always been his dream, but he wasn't willing to quit his job because his family depended on him. Well, then he got fired, and then his wife left him. And so now, in a way, he was really lucky because the universe made him make the change. Sometimes, though, we have to do that ourselves, and that can be scary. So yeah, sometimes that feeling irresponsible is really big, and it's hard to get past that. Okay, it can be. Sometimes we think it's wish fulfillment. That was always my biggest block to moving forward. I knew what I wanted to do, and then when I would get like a message to do it, I would think, no, that's just me wanting to do it. God's path for me, it probably involves a lot of pain and suffering. It wouldn't be something really fun. Okay, so that was like my big thing. Maybe we think it's too scary. Okay, maybe it's too scary to make the change, all right? To move out of the city or out of the state, or totally change careers or something like that. It can be scary to think about that. Going back to school. I've known people who really wanted to go back to school, like later on after their families were grown, but it was too scary to think about starting the process, right? So sometimes that's our excuse, because it makes sense to us. So we'll buy into it. Sometimes we're afraid people will think we've lost our minds, okay, if we follow our intuitive guidance. Years ago, I used to make something that are called, they're gem elixirs. They're like a flower essence, but they're made with gems or stones, and I loved doing this. Well, I used to take the kids, and we would visit a little store here in town called Good Sense, and I loved going there. I'd go there all the time. I knew the ladies that worked there, and I just loved talking with them. Well, one day, I go in there, and they're like, so Deanna, what have you been up to? Well, at first, I was afraid to tell them I had been making gem essences, because that was what I was doing all day, right? And I was so happy and excited about what I was doing, but I was afraid they would think I was, I don't know what I thought they would think. But then I thought, you know what, these are nice ladies. Even if they think I'm off my rocker, they're going to be so sweet about it, right? Because that's just how they were. So I told them what I had done. They got so excited for me. They wanted me to bring them in. I ended up selling this in their store for a couple of years before they closed. I sold gem essences in a retail store. It was amazing. It was so much fun to do that. Okay? Because I made myself trust myself, right? Think about every time you have trusted your intuition. How did you feel about the outcome? Right? I felt so good about how things turned out with the store Good Sense. I mean, I felt really good that I opened my mouth, that I trusted myself to open my mouth and tell them what I had been doing, because that gave me a great experience. Think about every time you haven't trusted your intuition. How did you feel about that outcome? So I told you I became a homeopathic practitioner, right? The reason I did that was because there's a school in Riverside called the Cerny Institute, and they teach hypnotherapy. What I really wanted was the hypnotherapy class. But I was pregnant with this one. And the class, it was a 3-month class. It would have, the last month of class would have been the last month of my pregnancy. he came 3 months early. He came a month early, right? And so you know how your first pregnancy, you always think the second one will be just identical, right? And that's what I thought. And so I thought, well, if she comes a month early, like her brother, I'm going to miss the last month of the class. And so I discussed it with Dave, and we just decided I would take it later. But see, this class ran in 3 month increments and was 3 parts, which meant it would be a year before I started it again. Well, they were offering a homeopathic practitioner class. I said I would just take that because I had to be doing something. And it was over quick, so it wouldn't interfere with the pregnancy or with the delivery. So I took it, even though it was expensive, and I felt like I really knew I shouldn't have gotten into it, right? I could have found something else to entertain myself, right? And just waited to take the hypnotherapy training. Now, it was a great class, a great teacher, and I know some students who went through it that went on to do a lot with it. It was great, but it just wasn't for me, right? And I wasn't willing to recognize that. And that was, again, why I tried so hard to make it work out, later on, okay? So I thought about that. I wasn't following my intuition when I did that. I was trying to just make something work out for me, okay? But it wasn't what I was meant to be doing. Every choice that we make is followed by an outcome, right? Everything. Remorse and regret are generally centered around when we're not following our intuition, okay? When we don't follow our intuition, that's when we look back and say, I should have listened. I should have probably, if only, right? Because we were getting a clear message at the time. We knew it. At the time, we were just afraid to follow through on it. Our feelings about our outcome are always going to depend on whether or not we listen to divine guidance. It's our personal will that keeps us from doing the things that we really want to do. It keeps us from making choices that empower ourselves. It keeps us from making choices that empower others. It is our divine will, following higher will, that allows us to make choices that are empowered. In the book of Proverbs, it says, trust in the Lord with all your heart and rely not on your own wisdom. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct your paths. What this verse is saying is that in this physical body, we have a limited perspective. Okay? We can only see so far, right? We can't see through walls. And some of us without our glasses can't see even to the walls. Okay? Our physical body and this physical presence gives us a limited perspective. It is the unlimited us working through us that has the unlimited perspective. So when we are trusting in God with all of our heart, we are allowing that unlimited force to work through us. Okay, and that unlimited force is what always exceeds our expectations. When we follow higher will, when we surrender personal will to divine will, we will have our expectations exceeded. We will be surprised and delighted. All we have to do is trust it. There's nothing more empowering in our life than to make a choice based in love. Nothing more empowering than surrendering personal will to divine will. When we're surrendering personal will to divine will, our heart and our mind become congruent, which means what we do and what we say are in alignment. We're not doing one thing yet saying another thing. And I know how that feels to say, oh yeah, I'm going to just do this and this and this, and then I'll go off and be all lazy and not do what I said I was going to do, right? That doesn't feel good. What feels good is to surrender and to have our actions in alignment with our higher purpose. That is what feels good. When we listen to our inner guidance, it allows us to be that channel for divine grace and love and healing. Not just for ourselves, but for other people around us, okay, for the world around us. And it all just starts with the choices we make. The choices that we make that empower us. So, until next time, remember that you are a divine expression of a loving creator. You are a force for good. You are a light and you light the way. With every beat of your heart and with every breath you take, you radiate light and love out into the world around you. In everything you do, you are blessed, and so it is. Amen.